The Eternal God Ship. What is it and how do we get one? What's up, everybody? This is Ace of Fan Ben. Welcome to another video. This one comes from an old request about tips or tricks demonstrating a combo of miniatures. So in this one, I'm going to be talking about the Eternal God Ship setup. So this is something that a term that I think Wolf kind of coined back in the miniature trading days. And it usually involves a plethora of abilities that when combined can make a ship theoretically invincible. Of course, it's not actually unsinkable or anything, but we're going to get straight into it. I created the original USS Concordia setup, or recreated it, I should say. This is not my original idea, and it's on Pirates of Ben, and you can find the fleet there. So we usually start with a ship that has the ability that says this ship's cannons cannot be eliminated. Mass still can be. If derelict, she can't shoot. So USS Concordia has both that ability and a high point cap. So she's 21 points, which allows us to add a lot of crew. So we're going to try to make it unsinkable. And she links to Montana Maze, which is perfect because Montana Maze has two of the abilities we want. He's got Captain, and the ship's crew can be eliminated unless she sinks, also known as Crew Protect sometimes. So, unofficial keyword. And so he gives us two abilities we really want. So the Captain obviously helps it become a gunship. We can move and shoot in the same move action, and then it'll protect the crew. And we're about to add a bunch of other crew, obviously. So one of the main ones we're going to add is Eternal. And the Americans actually have two cheap Eternal crew. Ralph David has it for just 1 point because he has Hostile Pirate for basically like a -1 point. And we have also got Gus Schultz for 2 points of Eternal. And in this case, I used Ralph David. You could use Gus Schultz if you are having, if you do have pirate ships in your fleet or pirate game pieces in your fleet. So now we have a ship that is Eternal, and the crew can't be eliminated. So that'll protect our Eternal crew. It doesn't protect them from being removed from the game, and it doesn't protect them from being captured. So just keep that in mind. Crew Protect is not all encompassing. So it's very specific to crew being eliminated. So just keep in mind they can still be removed from the game and captured, things like that, because those are not elimination. They're not the same thing. And we also got a helmsman, of course, for a speed boost because Concordia is not very fast. So now we got L+S. And I also added Diamond Nelson Turner. So he's a canceller crew, the American crew canceller from Pirates of the Barbary Coast. So for 5 points, you can shut down a crew or ship ability with an S each turn. And that'll help keep these abilities active, because one of the biggest threats to a setup like this is enemy cancelers. Because if they cancel Maze, they might be able to eliminate the Eternal crew and thus make the ship not invincible. Or they might shut down Eternal right before they take their last shot against the ship that will sink it. And then if Eternal is canceled, of course, it will actually sink. But we don't want that. So we've got a canceller of our own to combat against that. And then I added a shipwright just because it kind of fits reasonably well. Montana Maze with the link, we basically have 5 cargo spaces. That adds 1 cargo space. And then he takes up a space along with 5 crew total. The oarsman will not take up space. And the oarsman is actually one of the biggest keys to this entire setup. So, because oarsman says, if derelict, the ship gains a base move +S. But the real key, that's kind of the old oarsman text. If you look in the master keyword list, they actually changed the oarsman keyword partway through the game. And it says, this ship is not derelict when all of its masts are eliminated. So that allows us to shoot when we have no mass, because Concordia's ability says if derelict, she can't shoot. But oarsman says she's not derelict when all the masts are eliminated. So that way, Concordia will be in a really unique situation where with Captain and oarsman, we can have no masts and still be moving and shooting, firing all cannons. So you'd basically just shoot and measure from where the mast normally would be. And so this is a pretty crazy setup where the strength of the ship doesn't really go down as you lose masts. And then even if they sink you, you have Eternal. So then you come back. And the idea is to keep coming back over and over and over again and just decimate the enemy and be this annoying pest that never dies. So cancelers are the best way to combat it. But there's some other ways to kind of make it better too, or maybe not better, but just kind of alternates. So I have a few of those if you want to check out the fleet at my site, Pirates with Ben. I've got some other versions of it. There's a version of Maze that has same action twice, but generally you want to make sure you've captain. You could have a generic captain in that Maze and maybe not the shipwright or something. You can manipulate the points a little bit, but because this is not even, I don't think this is even maxed out. So we got 5 from the Canceller, plus 2 is 7, plus another 7 from Maze, 14, 15, 16, plus 2 is, that's only 18 points of crew. So you could do an alternate setup that's a little more point heavy on the crew. So that comes to 18 plus 21 is 39. So you can actually fit this into a 40-point fleet. It wouldn't be a very effective 40-point fleet unless it was a death match, in which maybe it would be reasonably effective. Yeah, maybe there's a chance this could contend. I don't usually see 40-point death matches. Usually I would see higher point build total than that, but for a standard build total, this might be a pretty good death match option. And there's some other options you can go with. So Crenshaw is actually a pretty decent crew to use on the Concordia. He extends the ship's cannons to L range, or makes them all L range. And she only has S range cannons. So you'd be getting that range bonus, that extra centimeter or whatever it is from S to L range on all 5 cannons, which is pretty nice. And then there's some other stuff you could do too. You could use a +1 to cannon rolls crew like Chief Petty Officer Charles Richard from Davy Jones' Curse to boost the cannons. But overall, we've got a ship that has Eternal. So she comes back if she sinks. You can't kill the crew, and the crew are partly what make it the Eternal Godship. And then, of course, with Oarsmen, we can shoot even when we have no mass. And ideally, since the crew can't be killed, we have both captain and helmsman along with that oarsman when we do have no masts. So then we could be moving S plus S speed, shooting 5 cannons with no masts. So it's a pretty cool combo overall. And we're going to build kind of an alternate version. I'm going to call it HMS Dreadnought Eternal Godship. So I'm going to say max points. It's probably going to be, I'm just going to set it to 50 and see how this goes. And Dreadnought is really expensive. So she's a 26-point ship, and she's very notable because she has the same ability as Concordia. She has that same ability where the cannons can't be eliminated. Mass still maybe. If derelict, she cannot shoot. So we'll start with that. And the English do not have an eternal crew. So we're going to bring in Brother Virgil, and he allows crew of any nationalities to use their abilities on this ship. So we're going to add him, and then I'm immediately going to add either Ralph David or I think I'm going to add Gus Schultz actually, because the point cost of the ship is so high that I'm not so sure we'll need that -1 point, that cheap, slightly cheaper eternal version that Ralph David provides. There's a chance we will, but and then what we really want here is Captain Helmsman, just to make it more of a gunship. So, and this is going to be, I don't care if we max out the point cost of the ship. This isn't really for a game. This isn't like a fleet specific build. This is more of a build you use as part of a bigger game, probably in like a 100-point deathmatch or maybe like a 200-point fleet in a big game, something like that. So not really worried about maxing out the point cap of the ship. In fact, I might actually want to, just to fit as much amazing stuff aboard. So I'm going to try, this is just on the fly, I'm going to try Rise of the Fiends, Thomas Gunn, Loyal England, Captain Helmsman. So he gives us those 2 abilities. I'm going to try maybe Griffin. Well, we know we need an oarsman, so I think I might add that next. We got to make sure we have all the abilities. Oh yeah, we do need crew protect. So I'm going to look for that real quick. So I'm going to go to Teeler Fire's database, cannot be eliminated unless she sinks. I'm just going to search like part of an ability text like that. And we're going to find the English ones. I know there's one from Mysterious Islands that has it. I don't know if that's the only English crew with this ability, the crew protect. But yeah, Portland. Commander Spencer Portland. Oh, from Davy Jones' Curse, actually. He's got crew protect and then same action twice for 7 points. So pretty similar, almost the same as the Maze, that other version of Montana Maze that we saw. Captain Mission. We do have the crew of any nationality can use their abilities on the ship via Virgil, but in case that gets canceled, I think I'd rather have the source of crew protect be English, because I don't think any of these alternates would really be beneficial. Hawkins does give us a 1 point discount, 6 versus 7 for Portland, but I think I'd rather just go with Portland, keep it English. That way, if Virgil gets canceled, you don't lose crew protect automatically when he gets shut down. So, and then these ones are pretty similar. Decatur would be a decent option. He gives you SAT versus. We're going to be locked into same action twice with Portland, which is a little less flexible. But usually when you want extra action, it'll be with a ship that has a shipwright, which I don't think we're going to have the cargo space for, maybe. And or a ship that might be like moving and exploring at different times. But here, we're mostly just going to be moving and shooting over and over again. So we same action twice is fine. We don't really need the extra action flexibility too much with this ship, I would say. So, and Captain Mission's not really better. Yeah, he's got extra action like Decatur. But anyway, so we'll go with Portland. So he's the English crew that gives us the crew protectability. And he also gives us the same action twice, which is, of course, a really good ability. So now we're getting tight on cargo. So we've got 5 cargo to start. So we don't need a link to get to 5, unlike with Concordia. But I don't think I'm going to be using a crew link. So we only have 1 more spot. Of course, the oarsman won't take up space. That'll be nice. So now we've got, 12 plus 5. So 17 points of crew. So yeah, I don't think we're even going to max out the point cost of the ship, which is fine. I mean, you could go with other options. You don't have to do this version of the Eternal Godship on Dreadnought. Especially Thomas Gunn, you could go with like a different captain, like a different named captain for the English. Could be better maybe, but I definitely want captain and helmsman. So now it gets interesting to see what we want to do with the last crew. So that's where it's going to get kind of modular. So now we're just going to make sure we check our boxes. So we have Concordia's ability. I'm just trying to basically copy the setup so we make sure we have all the abilities that are essential to the Eternal Godship. So we have the cans can't be eliminated ability. We've got Eternal, the Gus Schultz in this case. And then we've also got Captain and Helmsman, so it's a reasonably effective gunship at like a base level. And we also have the crew protectability. So all we really need, so we have oarsmen too. So we're basically good. We have all the elements of an Eternal Godship. The shipwright is pretty optional and won't always really help or come into play that much. It is a nice thing to have, but I think on Dreadnought, partly because our point cap is 5 points higher, we have plenty of point cap space left over. I'm actually going to use the last cargo space available to add something a lot more deadly. I think I'd rather increase the offensive capability of the ship rather than kind of the defensive capability of the ship with the shipwright. So I'm gonna go with Griffin, I think, just to max out how powerful the ship can be. But you could copy this original Concordia setup more directly. The English do have a couple crew cancelers, like their own version of Turner, basically. Lawrence from Barbary Coast is one of them. And the promo version, the LE version of Bratley, not the +5 version. They both have canceller. So you could put one of those on Dreadnought right here, or you could go with a shipwright, but I'd probably go with the canceller, not the shipwright, but I'm going to go for offense actually and add Griffin. So the LE version of Griffin gives you +1 to cannon rolls and +S to base move when you have the captain keyword, which we do with Thomas Gunn. So now we'll do our quick little checks here to make sure we're not over on cargo or points. So 14 and 5 is 19, plus that 5 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So we're at 25 out of 26 points. So we're good on the point cap. And I'm seeing 5 crew that take up space and 1 that doesn't take up space. So we're good on the cargo restrictions as well. So now we've got this nasty Eternal Godship that's honestly, I would say, quite a bit more offensively capable than the Concordia. So the Concordia is nice because you don't need the crew of any nationality ability to pull it off because they already have Eternal crew. So the Concordia is nice. You can pull it off with all American stuff. You can go pure faction. But Dreadnought, Dreadnought can actually be a more kind of a more dangerous version of this Eternal Godship setup, because we got good cannon ranges. We've got 3L without needing an extender like Crenshaw. And then the English have easy access to a nasty crew like Griffin. So now Dreadnought goes from being a lumbering behemoth at only S+S speed. Now she's got 3S speed with Griffin and Captain. So now this is pretty devastating, because we're going to be moving SSS potentially twice in a turn with same action twice via Portland. And then with +1 to cannon rolls, our 3s are going to become 4s. So it's effectively like we have 2L cannons instead of 3L. That's not what's actually happening. The 3s become 4s. So 3s hit basically, because they get +1 turned into 4s. So that boosts our accuracy up to 66% chance of hitting on each cannon. So it's pretty nasty setup overall. Very expensive, of course. And like I said, I wouldn't really run this unless it was like a 51 or 55 point deathmatch or whatever, or maybe 60 point deathmatch. I would usually run this as part of a bigger fleet, usually in like a campaign game, or maybe, like I said, maybe a 100 point deathmatch is another good option for it. So I'll add, I don't think I'm going to bother adding crew alternates. I'll just put something quick in the description. Could swap out Griffin for a canceller like Lawrence or a shipwright, etc. So that's fine. So I like the Griffin idea because Lawrence would be a good idea. Kind of makes it more of a defensive dreadnought, like almost like an Acorazado, or more like this original Concordia setup. But I think with the English, their easy access to Griffin and the high point cap of the ship, those make it really easy to add that devastating offensive capability, which I feel like takes the ship into another stratosphere offensively, because you basically add a decent amount of speed and a full other S, and then you get better accuracy, which is awesome. So pretty nasty setup. And once again, I think cancelers are the best way to beat it. So in this case, Dreadnought, she might get Griffin canceled, or maybe Portland if they're about to eliminate crew, or if they're about to sink the ship, they could cancel Gus Schultz at the opportune moment, so the ship actually goes down and doesn't come back via Eternal. But overall, pretty solid, nasty Eternal Godship setup. So question of the day is, which one do you like more? Which do you think is a better ship for this idea? And I'd be curious to see if you've got any Eternal Godship setups of your own, because there are some smaller ships with this ability, with the cannons cannot be eliminated, but due to the high crew point cost requirements of this setup and the cargo space requirements that go along with that, it's kind of harder to pull this off on the smaller ships that have that ability. You don't need that ability to pull off Eternal Godship setup. It's more based on the crew abilities. So you could try to set it up with something that already has Eternal built in. I'd be curious to see this kind of setup on a 10 master. Would be pretty nasty. But anyway, feel free to check out the affiliate links in the description below if you want to help with the channel. Feel free to answer the questions of the day in the comments. But beyond that, I'll see you in more Pirates videos. Thanks for watching,